The German invasion of Belgium on August 1914 was in direct violation of the Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris had stated that the Germans could not invade Belgium because they were a neutral state. The Germans were not invading but were passing through to France in order to execute the Schlieffen Plan. The Belgian citizens, however, did not know this and began to attack the Germans. The idea of the Schlieffen Plan was to win the two-front war by quickly defeating France again in the west. The plan scheduled 39 days for the fall of Paris. They were trying to do this in order to beat the Russians who were mobilizing to descend upon the eastern portion of Germany. The plan depended on Germany's ability to quickly mobilize troops and invade France before France could fully mobilize its troops to defend itself, and then quickly turn on Russia, which was the slowest of the three to mobilize. The Schlieffen Plan was created by Count Alfred von Schlieffen and modified by Helmuth von Moltke the Younger after Schlieffen's retirement. It was Moltke who actually put the plan into action in its modified form. It was executed to near victory in the first month of World War I. However, the modifications to the original plan, a French counterattack on the outskirts of Paris at the Battle of Marne, and surprisingly speedy Russian offensives ended the German offensive and resulted in years of trench warfare. Schlieffen's last words about the Schlieffen Plan were to remember to keep the right flank strong. The basic mechanics of the Schlieffen Plan was a devastating attack on France via Belgium as soon as the Russian had announced her intention to mobilize. A holding operation on the Russian/German border to be carried out if necessary and if required. Germany had 6 weeks to defeat France. Germany would then use their modernized railroad system to move troops from the French operation to the Russian front. Russia would then be attacked and defeated. The German invasion of Belgium under the Schlieffen Plan would lead to the British involvement in the war because of the alliance they had with Belgium. The invasion of France from Germany would lead to Russia's involvement because of their alliance. The Germans would also use more submarines in order to keep the blockade on British goods. But the sinking of the Lusitania got the United States involved ultimately in the war. The Schlieffen Plan simply led from one thing to another, which involved the British alliance with Belgium, France's alliance with Russia, and the sinking of the Lusitania that would ultimately bring the United States into the war. This would ultimately change how war was fought following trench warfare. Some monumental battles of World War I was the Battle of Tannenberg, the Battle of Verdun, and the Battle of Marne. The Battle of Tannenberg was fought in what is known as northeastern Poland, which ended in a German victory over the Russians. The Germans took 92,000 prisoners, and the Russians had lost another 30,000 killed or wounded. The Germans had totally sustained only 13,000 casualties. Russia lost almost an entire army, 400 guns, and other war material. Of the 150,000 men in the Russian Second Army, only 10,000 actually managed to escape. At the Battle of Verdun between the German and the French, there were 1 million German troops that had attacked only 200,000 French defenders on February 21st, 1916. The German advance was brought to a halt at the end of February. On the 6th of March, the German Fifth Army launched a new attack at Verdun, which is the longest battle of the First World War, that ended on 18th of December. The French army lost about 550,000 men at Verdun. It is estimated that the German army suffered 434,000 casualties. At the Battle of Marne on September 6th, French attacked a gap in the German army. This gap was the right flank that Schlieffen had mentioned earlier. This was the start of the trench warfare. It changed how battles were fought. They were less mobile and more in trenches. Armies never gained much land, only about 3 miles, but casualties at the battle were heavy. The French incurred 250,000 losses, and it is believed that the Germans suffered similar causes. On the eastern front of Germany, Russia was defeated at the Battle of Tannenberg during the Schlieffen Plan. This defeat would stop Russia from attacking Germany once again. World War I was split up into two different fronts, Eastern and Western fronts. On the Eastern front was Russia, and on the Western, France. Once again, the Russian forces would try and push the Germans back, but the bloody Eastern Campaign of 1914 would force the Russians to retreat. The Russians had lost 2.5 million killed, wounded, or taken prisoner that year in 1914. On the Western Front, in April 1917, the United States declared war on Germany, another crucial development in the expanding conflict. America's intervention grew war at sea, sympathy for the Triple Entente, and the increasing desperation of war.